10 tips for story writing. Step one, tip one, choose wisely. You're going to have to choose between a written stimulus and a visual stimulus. Either going to have to include these words in a story, or you're going to have to write a story based on this picture. You have to choose a prompt wisely. Ask yourself two questions. Which prompt is more interesting to me? Which one do I naturally feel drawn to? Second question, which prompt is clearer to me? Which prompt can I 100% understand? What if the written prompt has a word in it that you don't know? Wouldn't be a good choice. What if the picture has some things in it and you don't think you're confident in identifying what you're looking at, and maybe it looks confusing to you? Maybe not a good choice. So choose your prompt wisely before you start planning a story. Next, the prompt details. Pay attention to the details within the prompts. Some details can offer suggestions and ideas, while others will have to make it into your story. When I say details, what do I mean? You see a picture, what is in the picture that must be in the story? If there are people in the picture, they must be in the story. If there's a place in the picture, that place must be in the story. If you say I don't know, if you see some money in the picture, money must be in the story, right? And same for the written prompt. There are going to be some details in it that must make it into your story. So pay attention to the details. Next, this is a tip for if you can't choose a prompt. If you're there and you're stuck, you're saying, oh man, I can't choose between the picture and the text. Well, you're going to do something within 3 minutes. You're going to create an idea map or an idea list for each prompt and see which prompt generate the better ideas. So let's say you do a quick idea list for the picture. Okay, let me see. How many story ideas can I think about? You jot down story ideas. Then I jot down story ideas for the other prompt. Then I just choose the best story idea. That's what you do when you can't choose a prompt. Next up, master the 4 C's. You guys need to watch my story writing video. Master the 4 C's. Right? So after you choose your stimulus, you need to think about these 4 things. 1, character. Who is my story about? 2, conflict. What is the problem that my character is going to face? 3, change. How is the problem solved? How is the character changed? And 4, context. Where and when does my story happen? Every good story has these 4 C's: character, conflict, change, context. Think about them as you're planning your story, so your story makes sense. Tip number 5, plot outline. When you're planning your story, you need to write a plot outline before you start writing the story. It's very easy for us to get carried away and the story ends up going all kind of weird places and we end up writing 800 words. Run out of time, we can't do section D. Use a plot outline to avoid that kind of mess. The plot outline, you're just gonna write, okay, in the beginning of my story, this is gonna happen. In the beginning, you need to plan a way to introduce the character and the context and maybe introduce the conflict. Then, next part of your plot outline, middle. Here is where you're gonna build tension and explore the conflict, and the character is gonna be developed. And plan and just write a quick plan for how you want the story to end. How will the conflict be resolved? How will the character have been changed at the end of the journey? Right? So you need to do 2 different pieces of planning before you write a story: the 4 C's and the plot outline. All right, next tip for story writing: you need to master the 3 sentence types. Right? As you write a story, you want to vary the types of sentences to use. You need action sentences, bam, 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 fighting, shootout, running. You need description sentences where you describe the environment, you describe the character's feelings. And you need dialogue sentences where characters are actually talking to one another. Learn how to write all three types of sentences. Learn how to mix and match them to create a dynamic story. Master, ADD, add, or dad, whichever one floats your boat. Number 7, show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Instead of just telling the reader what happens, show them what happens with vivid, descriptive language. Right? Show, don't tell. Instead of just saying, Mark was hungry. That's you telling me that Mark was hungry. I want you to show me that Mark is hungry. You tell me the room echoed with the loud growls of his vacant stomach. Wow, you just showed me how hungry Mark is, right? So find ways to, you know, kind of use imagery and vivid descriptions to show what's happening in the story instead of just saying it was hot. Mark was angry. Why would you tell me that Mark was angry? Show me that he was angry. His brows furrowed and his eyes squinted. So I can visualize that and I can understand through my own imagination that Mark was angry. Yeah. Next, develop your characters. Right? Even though the story is short, it's not like you're writing a novel. You need to make the character memorable. You develop the character through dialogue and through the character, making decisions, through how the character interacts with the environment and with other characters. Make the character feel like a real person, right? Yeah, you're gonna be using up some literary devices in this story. One of the main devices will be your imagery to make your story very imaginative. All right, tip number 9 for story: use a consistent POV, point of view. Stick to a single point of view. If your story is in first person, I this, I that, we, stick to that. If you're writing in third person, he, she, they, stick to that. Don't switch. Don't start in I and then end up in he. Right? Make sure you keep your POV consistent from beginning to end. Next, cliffhangers might be fun when you're reading a novel. Don't use cliffhangers in the exam. Make sure a story ends properly. There's no part 2. There's no to be continued unless you fail and you continue the next year, and then you would fail again. So end your story properly. Wrap up the conflict. Make sure there's a proper ending. Don't end it in the middle. You can't say to be continued, right?